veil, plunging into the murky abyss, plumbing the depths. Tonight, we tread the unknown.
Carl, are you there?
Yeah.
All right, and what's your story?
Let's see. Let's start with, I don't know, I placed it about 1985. That would make me about 5 years old. I had I guess what you would say, a bumpy or tumultuous childhood. You know, the only, I guess, kind of escape or whatever I had was to go outside and play and, you know, get away from my parents. I fought quite a bit.
Right.
At the time, I was a single kid, a single child. You know, so I didn't have a lot to escape to. I know that. Let's see, this happened to me maybe 3 times, and you would think that they would have an immediate effect on me. But I was a kid, and I guess I just didn't really grasp, the amazingness of this. But yeah, I think about it now, and I have to come to the conclusion that what I was experiencing was a guardian angel. And what would happen is, I'd go outside to play or get away. We had some a tree line in the backyard. We had like a little small wooded area. I'd go back there and play with GI Joes or Hot Wheels or whatever. And, I'd just be minding my own business. And the first time it happened, I was just, playing. And I looked up, and, like, out of the corner of my eye, just, like, kind of around this little tree, right where it would break into the openness in my backyard, was a guy. And it was kind of like I knew that he wasn't really there, but he was.
This didn't startle you?
Huh?
It didn't startle you?
No, and see, that's kind of like what scares me now, is that I think about it now, and I'm like going back to it, and I'm like, I'm afraid for myself then. I'm just like, it freaks me out when I think about it. And you have to keep in mind, this was 1985. Yeah, it had to be in 85 because my sister wasn't born yet. She was born in 86. This was the summer of 85. 5 years old. I think I was, kindergarten? Yeah, I hadn't even started first grade. It was 1985, and the guy, I'll never forget, there were a few traits that always stuck with me that I can still see plain as day. He was wearing, this is goofy, but he was wearing a leather jacket. It was one of the ones that just barely come down to your waist. And it was the red zipper Michael Jackson leather jacket.
Wow.
And,
well, that was probably in style for the time, though, really.
Right. And it was always, now that I think about it, it's really silly because he was white. He was Caucasian, like super, super white. Not like sickly, but just, just straight up white dude. And he had super curly blonde hair. And he had on mirrored sunglasses. I know it sounds so stupid, but if I was going to make up a story about some mysterious dude following me when I was a little kid, I'd probably make him look a little bit cooler and not so cheesy. But he was skinny-ish, and he would never, ever say anything to me. But he always, this only happened a few times that I can remember.
Hey, if you tell me he moonwalked away, I'm hanging the phone up right now.
Right.
I'm serious.
Actually, I don't remember him moving at all.
Yeah?
Like, I never saw him walk. He never talked. He never made any gestures.
So did you ever see, did you see where he came from, or he was just gone,
no,
and then one minute
weird.
he was there,
Right,
next minute he was gone?
Right. He would never, materialize in front of my eyes or anything. It was just like, I'm just, da-da-da, I'm a little kid, I'm playing, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be, just happened to look over in one direction, and he was there. It was like he had already been there, and I just didn't notice him arrive or something like that. He was just there. It was usually in a very non-threatening standing position, just kind of, chilling. He was always looking directly at me. He was never menacing or anything like that. But he was also not welcoming either. So, I mean, he was just there. And from what I remember, it would always come around when, as a kid, I was trying to process what was going on inside my house. My parents, were screaming and fighting. My dad was out gallivanting and, womanizing. And, of course, my mom was freaking out about it. It was just really, really bad. I didn't get beat or anything. I wasn't mistreated. So I was trying to internalize and process what was going on with my parents. I'd go outside and play, and then sometimes he would just be there. And from what I remember, it kind of like put me a little bit at ease, you know?
Well, what do you think it was?
I don't know. Like, I am spiritual. I am a Christian. And I do believe, I can't really say that I honestly believe guardian angels because I don't know. There's a lot that, I don't know that you don't know, that a lot of people don't know. But I do honestly think it was a spiritual experience, I guess. And it did kind of comfort me. And I think you and I have talked about this in the group, or maybe a couple of times where we were hanging out. And I've said this many times in the group. I've stated this, that I honestly think that kids of pre-adolescent age are very in tune with things that we don't even know about once we get to like maybe 13, 14, 15 years old. Children are very open and very susceptible, I think, in their mind frequency, their mind's wavelength.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. They're just so much more receptive to things like that, in my opinion.
Think maybe they're not corrupted by the world yet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's what it is. In today's modern thought and experience, we get so wrapped up in, the here, the now, the touch it, the taste it, the feel it. This is reality. And, I believe in science. I think science is a wonderful thing. But if it's not explainable, it's not real. And that's like the mentality of today's culture. I don't mean just ours in America. In a lot of cultures, ours, the modern culture, is spirituality and boogeymen and stuff like that. It's just not real. And if you believe in that kind of thing, you're, a nut job. Now, you have other cultures around the world that embrace that type of thing. Ours doesn't. And yeah, I think when you're a kid, you said that you haven't been corrupted yet. And corrupted can be, just in a, not necessarily a bad way, but just, that's the way the world works. That's how it happens.
Well, maybe it's they haven't got to the point where they got to think about bills and got to think about jobs and everything else. So
and
their mind's free to roam.
Imagination too, and imaginations are great things, And I don't think this was a figment of my imagination, because I can honestly tell you, I didn't go and tell anybody about it. I never told my parents. As I was coming up, I never told any of my friends. The only time I've ever talked about it was here right now tonight, and then I think a couple of times I've posted about it, maybe 5 or 6 months ago when we first started talking about doing this project. I never felt like I was hiding it, but I never felt compelled to talk about it either. It's just something that would kind of come across my mind every so often,
Yeah.
Just be bored, be thinking about stuff, and be like, oh yeah, and then that's kind of weird that happened.
Awesome. Well, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
Has it happened since then, or have you had any?
No.
So nothing like that's happened since then. No hints of it coming back around or anything. Just those few times when you were young, and then no more.
Right, when I was younger. I mean, I think if it happened now, I would flip the hell out. I don't know what the fuck,
Yeah.
But I do think about it when I get. I have a difficulty dealing with anger. Like, I will internalize it, and it affects me physically, and so we all deal with stress differently.
Right.
But I get incredibly angry about certain things, or I get incredibly emotional about certain things, and sometimes I'll think about it, him or her, whatever. I mean, it was in a male figure, but I'll think about it. I will think about when I was a little kid, and I will feel like the same way I did, just unsure and uncertain, and
Right.
He will come to mind sometimes. And I always thought that was kind of weird, but I don't know. Maybe that's it, let's just say it is a guardian angel. Maybe like it crosses my mind at certain points now that I'm older, and that's kind of like its way of
coming back when you need it to.
Right. It's like its way of communicating with me now, because like I'm, maybe it knows that if it appeared in front of me now, I'd have to be committed. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah,
but, yeah.
That makes sense. Well, thanks for sharing your story. And until next time, we'll be trading the unknown.